Welcome to An Old Guy Builds. This is part 2 of staining a deck. This is a great money-saving project you can do yourself and is a good beginning project that most people would do a great job on. In this video, I'll show you how to cut in the edges, which is the process of painting around the outside of your deck surface where there's contact to a building or something that you don't want to get stain on. At the end of the video, I'll talk about the time involved, the costs, and how often you need to stain. When you're cutting in, you want to go very slow up to your house so you don't get stain on your siding. Take your time. I slowly slide the brush under the siding, making sure I have a brush full of stain. How much stain? Enough so you don't need to run the brush back and forth more than a few times, and not so much that it pools and doesn't spread evenly. One trick that works for me is to just slide the brush in one direction, either left to right or right to left. This keeps the bristles on the brush more even for a better and more consistent coating. If you enjoy this video, please like and subscribe. Doing that will tell me that you like my content, so I can make more videos like this. It also helps YouTube send more viewers like you to my content. Thank you. You'll notice a few spots in the video where I'm running the brush from one side to the other in one long, smooth motion. This helps me when I'm doing it to try to take away the bubbles and make the surface look more consistent, and it tends to spread all of the stain much more evenly. There are a few basic rules when you stain your deck, but check your can of stain for specific manufacturer's directions. Number 1, most deck stains work best if the temperature doesn't fall below 60 degrees Fahrenheit for the following 24 to 48 hours after you stain. Number 2, pick a time when the weather shows it'll be dry for the next 24 to 48 hours after you finish applying the stain. 3, don't shake the stain. A gentle stirring is best to avoid the buildup of bubbles. Number 4, try not to stain during peak sun hours when the sun is directly overhead. The stain will dry much faster and not give you as much time to roll on the stain without causing some areas to be darker when the stain dries too fast. I use a brush for cutting in, doing the spindles and posts near the top and bottom where a roller will not reach easily. I use a roller for the deck surface, outside and the sides of the spindles and the posts. And when I mention a roller, I mean a roller cover, the furry part with the nap, pushed onto the roller frame. Here's a good tip that I learned from my own messy personal experience. Don't stain or paint yourself into a corner. When you begin staining, plan on where you will finish the surface and make sure you have allowed a way to get off the deck. For my deck, I have a door going into the house and the steps leading off from the deck. The first time I stained the deck, I started near the door, then went over to the stairs and continued moving backward, finishing in the corner with no access to get off the deck. Fortunately, I was younger and still able to climb down. I was really embarrassed at the time, but now it seems funny at how I missed something that seems to be so common sense. One suggestion that can be helpful is to break down your plan of staining to 3 areas. 1, deck surface, including stair tread tops. 2, upright spindles, posts, and railings. And 3, sides of the deck, underneath the deck, and areas where the sun don't shine. A few years back, I had done a lot of repairs on my deck surface and a lot of surface sanding to remove old stain and dirt. My plan of attack was to do the spindles, posts, and deck railings first. That way, I still have access to walk on the deck, and that part of the staining is what takes me the most amount of time. I let that dry for a day, then I did the deck surface. Since my staining the deck surface had no need for me to be in contact with the spindles by touching them, it didn't matter if they were 100% dry. I worked from the area furthest away from the stairs, going off the deck. Then I worked backward toward the deck stairs. That allowed me to finish the surface, so I only had the outside and underside left to do. My neighbor likes to ask me when I'm going to be finished with my projects. I tell him I'll never be done. Some people do projects with the aim of completing a task so they can go do anything else, like sit and watch a game on television. My projects, whether it be staining the deck, resealing the driveway, or building a retaining wall, are more than just items of home improvement that need to be checked off a list. They're a form of entertainment for me. Like some people may enjoy learning a new language, writing a book, or winning a card game. Working on projects allows me to escape from everyday life. I get lost in the process of one more brush stroke or adding one more block to a wall. Time flies by, and when I have to quit for the day, I feel a sense of sadness and accomplishment. I'm sad that I'm leaving my place of full concentration, where my mind doesn't need to wander over the day's events. I'm lost in a world of concentration, feeling the intake of my breath, and feeling tools or materials in my hands. Hands that can take a pile of materials and create something. Not just something useful like a retaining wall, but useful, like a sense of knowing that I built that, and that if I can do that, imagine all the other things I could accomplish. I feel accomplished knowing that I could see progress with what I'm doing, and that my own personal little world has grown a little more. Another tip: when applying the stain, try not to let the stain dry before you stain further so you don't get color differences from overlap. What I mean by this is that I'll stain with the roller across only 2 or 3 boards. Then I'll continue applying stain to those 3 boards, going from one end of the deck to the other. That makes sure there's no overlaps of stain on the boards. When I overlap the stain, the part that gets stained twice is darker, and that's darker than the other 2 sides around it. And it looks a little odd for my deck. For a consistent color, try not to overlap. Now what I just said on overlapping only applies when you use a color in a stain. If you're doing a clear coat, the overlap may only look a little more shiny, but the color may not be any different. In part 3 of this video series, I'll cover staining the deck surface and stair treads. And in part 4, I'll cover staining the railings, spindles, and posts. Thank you for watching, and enjoy an old guy doing some work.